Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Pitt County Board of Commissioner meeting. I'd like to go ahead and call the meeting to order. And if we could take a roll.
Motion to excuse Commissioner White.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. If everyone could vote.
Thank you.
Motion passes. And if everyone could stand for the invocation and the pledge, please.
Shall we pray? Eternal God, we come first of all to thank you. We thank you for this day. Thank you for life, health, and strength. We ask now that you come into this meeting and be with us as we make the decision that will be pleasing to you. In thy holy name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and this time we'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second. If we could all vote. Motion passes. And Madam Manager, do we have any public addresses to the board?
You have 5 people signed up to speak. If the attorney will read the statement, we can then call the first person.
Pitt County welcomes comments on all matters of public concern. Please state your name and address prior to beginning your remarks. Pursuant to the board's rules of procedure, I will keep your time at 3 minutes per speaker. If you are speaking on behalf of a group that is present, please identify your group, and I will extend your time to 5 minutes.
Your first speaker is Joe Butler.
Good afternoon. My name is Joe Butler. I'm speaking on behalf of Whitest Station Community Water Project. We in the Whitest Station community are in dire need of good quality water. We have been trying to get water in our area since 1999. Water lines nearest to the intersection of Highway 30 and State Mill Road are as follows. Greenville Utilities comes to 3562 State Mill Road, which is less than 2 miles away. Stokes Regional Water Corporation comes to Highway 30, Oakley Road, which is 2 miles away. Some factors why we need water from Greenville Utilities are low water level during drought, iron rust hard water, and cloudy water. Possible chemical residue, possible bacteria. Residents are having to buy water for domestic use. On a positive note, acquiring water from Greenville Utilities would promote residential growth and return would generate real estate and personal property tax for Pitt County and water revenue for Greenville Utilities. Our question to the Pitt County Commissioners, is there any way we would qualify for assistance from the Pitt County government through the American Rescue Plan or other grants for this needed water project? Any assistance you can provide would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for letting us present our water needs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, I have Barbara Flake.
Barbara Flake, Regional Water Project. This area out in State Mill Road for many years has been primarily an agricultural area. However, that's changing, and it's changing very quickly. It's an ideal place for people to come out and start buying lots and build homes, and that's happening. But they really need to have proper access to water. It's a shame for people to come out and build homes and then find out they don't have the proper water situation. So we're hoping that we can at least get something started to start to resolve this matter as the growth is really starting to go out in this area and go quickly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it Elise Shear?
Hi, my name is Elsie Shear, and I live out on 4233 State Mill Road by myself, and my well has been bad. I have a shallow well. It's been bad now for about 2 or 3 years, of which I'm afraid to drink the water. So I buy my water from the grocery store, gallon water, just so I have something to cook with, and bottled water, bottled water to drink. So I was just coming out here to see if there was any way that I could have water, get water out to my place. If there is any way that you can help in any way at all, I would appreciate it. I really would. And I know the other people that live out that way that their water is not good, would too. And that's what I just wanted to say, because it's very important that we have good water to drink. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Millie House.
Good evening, I'm Millie House, and I live at 3558 State Mill Road, that's Robertsonville. Thank you for having us out tonight and hearing our calls. I can tell you that I am next to the last house that received the expansion of city water, is what we called it then. It's probably been between 10 and 15 years ago. The wells out there, many of us had very shallow wells. Mine was rust, you can't drink the water. Such an improvement after that. So now I really have quality water, but nobody beyond me does. We're in like a 4-mile radius there where we do not have quality water and do not have internet, but we're here tonight to talk about water. But we certainly feel that water is a basic need. We have people in the community with babies. We have elderly people that depend on this water. They have to get the water at the grocery store because the water is not drinkable. It's rust, very hard water. Can't really wash your clothes in it. So whatever you can do to help us, we need to improve the water in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then finally, I have Ella King. Ella King. Okay. That completes your public addresses to the board.
Thank you. If we could now move on to, which would you want to do? Employee of the month.
Okay, and we will go down front. I did receive a message that Chrissy Adams, who is next after Employee of the Month, is running late. So if the board is okay, we'll do Employee of the Month, then the resolution honoring the baseball team, and then go back to Chrissy Adams. And while we're going down, if the board wanted to approve those resolutions, that would be great.
Is everything all right down there?
Thank you.
Second.
Y'all all right down there?
I honestly was listening.
I'm going to go this way. If everyone could vote, please.
Okay.
Having technical difficulties here.
Is that a computer?
I want to say something about the water thing. Can I say something about the water thing?
If Commissioners McLaughlin, Ward, and Perkins Williams could vote.
Oh, that's right, we got a Kessler.
And then if Pamela Ellis would please come forward. And you can stand right there on the black dot. Thank you so much. Tonight I present to you all, Board of Commissioners and those present with us and watching on TV, Ms. Pamela Ellis as our September Employee of the Month. I could not be more pleased to present this to Pamela and offer her congratulations. She was nominated in part for her ultimate can-do attitude, while taking on her tasks with positive energy and always with a smile. She consistently finds ways to help coworkers and other departments in their day-to-day tasks, even while meeting her own deadlines. Mrs. Ellis goes beyond her expected parameters of her job, plans events and celebrations for the department, and sometimes bears that cost on her own. She has been an administrative assistant with the Pitt County Department of Social Services for 9 years, and we are so fortunate to have her on board. So with that, I can present you this evening with a certificate that reads, Certificate of Recognition for Employee of the Month, September 2022, presented to Pamela Ellis, Department of Social Services, in recognition of your dedication and exemplary service to Pitt County government and the citizens that we serve. In addition to that, it comes with a $100 check. So,
Don't spend it all.
Three, two, one. Three, two, one.
congratulations. Thank you so much. And next, we will jump ahead to the recognition honoring the 2022 Greenville 15U Babe Ruth All-Star Baseball Team. If those who are present for that recognition would come forward. Can all players and coaches, we'll have you gather around up here. And I can read your recognition. Hello, how are you? Good. Okay, today we're honoring the 2022 Greenville 15U Babe Ruth All-Star Baseball Team with a resolution signed by our chairman, Mike Fitzpatrick, and attested by Kimberly Hines, clerk to the board. And that resolution reads, whereas the 2022 Greenville 15U Babe Ruth All-Star Baseball Team played baseball with remarkable success and dignity as representatives of the Pitt County and the state of North Carolina. And whereas the 2022 15U Babe Ruth All-Star Baseball Team plowed through pool play with a perfect 4-0 record, which led them to win the Babe Ruth World Series by defeating Torrance, California, 10-7. And whereas the players, coaches, and families of the 2022 15U Babe Ruth All-Star Baseball Team deserve congratulations for their time, effort, and resources that they committed to going all the way and winning the 2022 Babe Ruth World Series. Their players, Matthew Aldridge, Brett Cash, Caleb Grandy, Andrew Knight Hyatt, Gavin Liverman, Christian Lepresti, Joseph May, DeMarcus McCray, Ethan Simmons, Owen Simmons, Parker Watson, Trey Williford, and Brandon Worsley. And their baseball team coaching staff, Hunter Christopher, Anthony Said, Caleb May, and Jean Briggs. Now therefore be it resolved, the Pitt County Board of Commissioners does hereby recognize the outstanding achievements of the 2022 Greenville 15U Babe Ruth All-Star Baseball Team and congratulates the players, coaches, and families for winning the 2022 Babe Ruth World Series. Adopted this the 12th day of September 2022 by the Pitt County Board of Commissioners. Mr. Chairman, if you will present that to their coach. Certificates for each of you, and we'll pass out to get to you those who are not here. Matthew Aldridge. Okay. Brett Cash. Caleb Grandy. Congratulations. Andrew Knight Hyatt. Gavin Liverman. Christian Lepresti. Joseph May. DeMarcus McCray. Ethan Simmons. Thank you. Congratulations. Owen Simmons. Related? Very nice. Parker Watson. Trey Williford. Brandon Worsley. Terrific. And then we have Jean Briggs. Thank you. Caleb May. Anthony Said, and Hunter Christopher. Wonderful. And then an additional copy of the resolution for each of the coaches. Thank you for making Pitt County so proud with your hard work, and we really appreciate your bringing the win home. Scoot Jen for a picture.
3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
And Chrissy Adams. Is Chrissy Adams here yet? She is not. She is our 30-year recognition. We will leave that till later.
If we could now move on to the public hearings. Mr. Rhodes?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. We have two zoning-related items tonight. The first one is a rezoning. This is by the Affordable Communities Group LLC that is making this request. It's for about 4.5 acres located on Tranners Creek, or near Tranners Creek, right on Clark's Neck Road, and we'll show you a map in just a minute. The intention here is to rezone from rural agriculture to general commercial, and then this is for specific use. It's a conditional district rezoning to allow a self-storage warehouse. Again, to orient everyone, this is at the very eastern tip of the county, right on Clark's Neck Road. And the mouse isn't working tonight, so hard to point to this one. But towards the end of the eastern part of the county, very close to both Tranners Creek and to the Tar River. As shown here on the map, you can see the property is about 4.5 acres. It's bounded in the yellow dash line. It is in two different categories as far as our land use plan is concerned, primarily in the suburban residential, but this is an area that is somewhat prone to flood between these two water features, and so a portion of that is also agricultural open and natural resource conservation. As far as your existing land uses, quite a number of residential dwellings here, as well as the RV park that's just to the north of that, right along Tranners Creek. Part of this property is already being used for some on-site storage. So again, as far as the two land use plan categories, the first one, suburban residential, is intended for residential uses and some limited commercial operations, depending on locational criteria and a number of other factors. The other one, agricultural, open and natural resource. Again, since this is prone to flood to a certain extent, this is just barely within the 100-year floodplain. We do suggest that there be limited types of construction within that area, but if it is, make sure that it's elevated outside of the base flood elevation. As far as our zoning is concerned, this particular area is currently rural agricultural, and again, the intent is for general commercial, and there is a mix of uses as we've already seen on the existing land use map. Just not too far from here is the Tranners Creek mini convenience center. I'll get it out sooner or later. So there are some other commercial activities in the area. What the general commercial district's primarily for, not surprisingly, is for a range of retail, service, office, and limited wholesale type uses. This conditional zoning district that's being requested is specifically for self-storage self-storage warehouse, also known as mini storage. There is some outdoor storage that's also being considered for the site. So anytime we get one of these conditional district rezonings, it does have to be accompanied with a site plan, and in this case, this is what the intention is. This is the 4.5 acre tract. There are 9 structures that are intended, each one having about 24 units. Most of this area would also be paved for folks to come in and out and service those areas. Planning staff does believe that this is consistent with the land use plan and is recommending approval of this. We also find it reasonable and in the public's interest. The planning board also reviewed this at the August meeting and has recommended approval as well. So we do have 2 motions tonight. One is to adopt the following consistency statement, and that is included in your package. The second one is to approve the request, and there's a few conditions that go along with that. Number 1, there is a requirement, since there is additional types of screening required, there has to be a plan submitted for the landscaping. There's also a need for soil erosion sedimentation control plan, stormwater plans, and to ensure that they meet certain requirements with DOT. Portions of the roadway access to the property has to be paved as well. A couple of other things, both environmental health and the inspections department would need to review the appropriate plans before any occupancy could happen. With that, Mr. Chairman, that's it for our staff report. Welcome you opening the public hearing.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing.
So we have one person signed up to speak. It's M. Peden with IBX Engineering.
Good evening, I've got to swear in.
No, ma'am, I was just going to read a brief statement. Pitt County welcomes all comments on this proposed rezoning. Please state your name and address prior to beginning your remarks. You'll be given 5 minutes for this public hearing.
All right, thank you. My name is Marie Peden. I'm actually from Washington. I live at 817 Old Bath Highway in Washington, North Carolina. Thank you for having this opportunity to bring this to you from my clients. They actually do own the trailer park across the street, and this is more of an assisted use to their clients that have the trailer park. I'm here mostly to answer any questions that you may have. James has done a great job of explaining everything, and if you have any questions that you may want answered regarding the details of what they plan to do, just please ask. That's all I'm really here for, so.
Thank you.
Yes.
Does anyone have any questions or comments? No. If not, at this time, we'll close the public hearing and entertain any motions.
Motion to approve both motions.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second. If everyone could vote. Motion passes. Mr. Rhodes, looks like you're up again.
Yes, your second public hearing tonight is for rezoning, or I should say a zoning ordinance amendment. This is by Sawyer's Property Management Group, and this was a request to amend a particular section that deals with go-kart raceways in our zoning ordinance. And primarily, this is to reduce some of the setback requirements that we have, and I'll get into the specifics of that. The current regulations are that any residentially zoned property needs to be at least 500 feet away from these racetracks. What the request has been is to reduce that to 200 feet for any of the properties where there's actually a residential dwelling involved. The planning board also has supplemented, as you'll see on the screen here on item 7, through their review, they've also recommended, the planning board members have recommended that only electric go-karts be allowed on these raceways. So those tend to be less noisy, and appear to be the types of vehicles that are used these days in these raceways. So let's just take a hypothetical just to give you an idea of what the changes in the setbacks would entail. All these properties that are shown on the screen in this aerial photograph are residentially zoned. The current setback is 500 feet, so this large tract here, all these areas would be required to have at least 500-foot separation. What would remain on this large tract was only about 3 acres that could be used for a go-kart raceway. With the new regulations that we're dealing with, certainly any of these, like this is a subdivision on the west side here, those would retain the 500-foot setback. But these open wooded areas that don't have residential dwellings on those, the setback would only be 200 feet. So this would amount to an increase of almost 10 acres of where a raceway could go based off those new standards. The planning board has reviewed this and, as I've mentioned, has supplemented an existing condition or another condition onto the existing ones, and advise that it is consistent with the land use plan. So with that, 2 motions tonight. First, the consistency statement, and then approve the request that, before you tonight for Sawyer's property management. And we're ready for the public hearing.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing,
And no one has signed up to speak.
and we will close the public hearing.
Move approval.
I believe Mr. Vice Chair has a question.
Yeah, James, could you talk about that 200-foot and the abutment up to to property that doesn't have houses on it now? I mean, who owns that property and what happens when they want to build on it?
Well, at this point, we've got a lot of areas, especially in the RA, which is considered rural, residential, RR, and also rural agriculture. Both are considered residential districts. So at this point, we've got a lot of open space out there that would restrict any of these type of operations going in. So what it does in effect is reduce that setback by 300 feet on any of those properties that don't have residential dwellings
I
currently.
understand that, but my question is, so somebody owns that property that's being, the GO track is getting closer to, and that person now, if they build a house on it, they've got a 200-foot. And my question is, is this because it's a text amendment, we're not getting notification of property owners? I'm not sure why those people would not be involved in this process.
And again, this was a hypothetical case up here, so we don't even have a tract that's under consideration right now. So no one's been notified other than through the public hearing
Yeah, I'm not
notice.
sure I really like the idea of a future handicap to a property owner to say that because the house exists there now, it's 500, but the house doesn't exist there now, it's 200, and then someone wants to build and it's still 200, and that seems to go into our perpetuity until it changes again.
Well, and just to be completely transparent, in your package, you'll see there's a number of other considerations too, as far as noise.
Yeah, I'd say, I got that, but I mean, if it's the noise, then I'm not sure why it's not 200 all the way around. I mean, if we're to the point where the noise isn't an issue, it seems to me like we're giving almost two signals here that it's 500 feet is okay, but it's 200, and if it's the noise is the noise, it's going to be whether it's 200 or 500. I'm not sure that I'm hearing a reason to support the change of 200 is what I'm trying to get.
Well, again, I think we were concerned about reducing it all the way down to 200 on any areas that we already have seen or know that there are existing dwellings there. So
That seems to make me think that we ought not to change it to 200, but that's my feeling. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Well, I do. And what Alex is saying, what will happen once somebody decides to build there, you know, the the go-kart, whatever, will already be there.
That is
Okay.
correct.
You know, it's kind of like the airport and the people living near the airport. The airport was there when the people, you know, when they built that subdivision. So they got to contend with the noise and all that. So, yes, I understand what Alex is saying.
So, in other words, Alex is saying, if we're gonna change it 200 feet in some areas, then change it 200 feet everywhere, or don't change it at all. Is that what you're saying?
I'm looking for a justification. It's that the noise is the noise, whether it's going out over 200 or 500 feet, and it seems like we ought to have some consistency there.
Well, James, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they're taking the current standard, which is 500 feet, which allows gas-powered go-karts, and reducing it to 200 with the understanding that it has to be an electric battery powered.
I do
So I
understand
think
that,
they're-
yeah. But I still get an inconsistency in the regulation, is what I'm trying to comment on. I absolutely understand that the gas go-karts, I think, we're not going to be allowed on this, but I also believe that might be a management decision, that a new manager could come in and allow gas, is that? Okay, so they wouldn't be allowed at all.
What is proposed tonight is not only the change in the separation, but to only allow electric go-karts. That is a change
And
also.
it's the belief of your office that those electric go-karts would not infringe on over 200 feet noise?
If they cannot, because we still have the noise requirements as well, so.
The noise requirements aren't, yeah, I'd rather hear something else, I think, yeah.
Well, there's different in your packet.
That don't fly right.
So there are quite a number of other conditions that are required for this, and one is number 3, the facility shall be sited and operated so as not to produce noise or sound that would adversely impact adjoining or surrounding properties.
I think that's the one that's so vague that we've had issues with before, James, I'm sorry, yeah. I mean, that's, I don't know how somebody gets that stopped. You know, it's like when, I really don't. So I'm looking for something more. I'm thinking about our sound engineer issues before, that why don't we have someone actually see what the level of the noise is? I mean, can we not afford to do that? To get some sort of a benchmark that says, what's the disturbance here?
You could, if the board wanted to
Well, maybe not.
entertain
Yeah,
the.
that's okay. I won't take it that far. But it does concern me that we're basically creating 2 sides is 200 and 2 sides is 500, and I'm not really seeing a justification for that, yeah.
And the concern being limiting the future use of
Yeah,
undeveloped
it seems
residential
to,
property.
and it seems inconsistent that we would, that it's a noise travel issue, and we're not putting up barriers, we're not measuring the sound, we're just saying that the sound won't bother those people. And if it does, then they can call the sheriff to come down there and put that little meter up.
Commissioner Nunley?
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. So just wanted to kind of take the hypothetical one step further on this, just to make sure I'm clear on it as well. So if we modified the regulations and we had the 200 setback in one area, but later a homeowner wanted to develop in that area and go residential, wouldn't necessarily be a bar from that homeowner doing that. It would just be that they would do so with the understanding that there was already a track there. And so, I guess from a dirt law perspective, you've already gotten notice that there's this, if it's considered a nuisance, if you don't want to be near the go-kart track, then don't buy there. But if you do, certainly maybe you want to, maybe buy near there. I'm not making that decision. I just kind of wanted to walk through that hypothetical. There will be no future bar from development with that setback, just to be clear on that.
There would not be any bar on the residential.
Maybe it would keep it undeveloped and we would have more trees.
You could look at it that way.
Thank you. I like to look at it that way.
Well, at least they'd have to consider it
Yes, I
when they
appreciate
buy.
that. Okay,
So,
I appreciate that.
'cause it's
I've said
sitting-
enough. I'm
because
sorry.
it's sitting there, so many people haven't had those opportunities.
But let me make one comment as to what Chris Nunley had said. The problem with buying a home or selling a piece of property is there is not full disclosure to the purchaser.
Right.
It's caveat emptor. They may not know that there's a track over there. They may go and buy the land and then find out about it, and then, oops, too late, you've already bought it.
I mean, you investigate before you purchase.
Nobody does, Mary. Trust me. My wife was a real estate agent. I was a real estate agent. Can only support her, but no, nobody. If they don't have to disclose it, they won't.
I believe Commissioner Perkins Williams made a motion. Is there a second?
It's lost, they didn't second it.
I believe the motion fails.
Is there any other motions?
Any other substitute motions?
Let me ask a question, Mr. Chairman. If we pass this and there's some concern, considerable concern from some homeowner, could we bring this back, James, to be further discussed as as an amendment?
Well, right now, if this doesn't pass, the 500-foot rule regardless stands. So there won't be any changes to the zoning ordinance, if
And they
I'm
won't be.
understanding you correctly.
So if we pass this, there will not be any changes.
And no building.
If you pass it, hypothetically, I thought the motion had died.
Yeah,
Has the motion died?
Yes, do you need a motion to deny, or if there's no motion, are you
If
okay?
there's no motion, we're staying exactly where we are,
Okay.
and there's a 500-foot separation all the way around on any residentially zoned property.
James, I think maybe as a part of the presentation of whether or not to approve this change or not, I know as I'm sitting here listening, the only reference point that I have for a go-kart track is Atlantic Beach Circle in the go-karts, and I can hear it from 20, a long ways away. I don't have a reference point, and I don't know if anyone else on this board has a reference point to what the actual disturbance a track like this would be. Presumably, there would be a dramatic difference in impact the community. And I think maybe what some of the discomfort here is making a decision without having a point of reference to base this modification on. I know that's the only thing that gives me a little pause. I think that it's, not such a bad thing to have amusements in our community and for businesses to be able to do that. But what we're lacking here in the presentation, I think, is what does it look like? If they're out there, why aren't we seeing that when we're considering whether or not to change, make such a change? And I don't know if that's something that's possible. I don't know what it.
Mr. Chairman.
If it would make others comfortable.
Yeah, currently, we do not have a go-kart track here in the county.
We don't.
But the best we've done as far as comparing the gas-powered, I know what those sounded like back in the day, as compared to the electric ones, our YouTube videos is the best thing that we've had, because we haven't visited any of late either.
Is there noise from them? Is there a way to say this noise is emitted from this machine, and then how many machines would be on the track at one time? Is there not some sort of way of limiting like that? I mean, they must make some noise. And if you put 100
They still make
out there,
noise, and I mean.
and if you
it's
put
not
100 of
just
them out there
one-
buzzing, we're talking about that cryptocurrency. Everybody talking about that low buzz that goes on all the time. So that's, I think that Chris is right. I mean, that's the reference point. And I'm not trying to hold this up.
I'll make a substitute motion that we bring this back at our next meeting with some examples for the board to consider prior to making this change.
And I've got to be clear, are you looking for noise examples? What specifically?
Yeah. I think examples of what an electric-driven go-kart sounds like, and I'm sure we could find footage that's a clear representation of what other similarly situated. If we're thinking about what type of kart track, something that looks like that, and that might make the board more comfortable to make that change. So the motion is just to bring it back to consider.
And that's not substitute, because there's no motion on
No
the floor,
motion,
just a
okay.
main motion.
There's no motion on the floor, and I want to tell this board why I made a motion, attempted to make a motion. That was an attempt to make the motion. In the rural area, you don't have anything to do. And electric does not keep noise. It's just like a golf cart, when you push the pedal, it goes. And residents need something to do. Most of us sitting up here live in the city, and there's plenty of things to do in the city. In the rural areas, there's nothing to do. And I don't see any cars running through this track, and that's why I made the motion. I don't see any danger for the person who may be getting on the go-kart, because I would like to get on one myself. But you need to have something for people to do in the rural area, and this would be ideal. That's why I made that motion. But since nobody seconded, we don't have one. But I wanted you to know why I wanted to give the residents in the rural area something to do, something to keep them out of trouble. Thank you.
And the point of my motion is just that we don't delay too long, we just bring it back next meeting, let's get some more information, and then if we're all on board with it, we can go that way. So that's my motion. We have a
Did you
second?
get a second?
No.
I'll second that motion. I think it's what we need to do.
It's been moved and properly seconded. If everyone could please vote.
And
How am I supposed to vote?
and if you have something
They're gonna bring it
for
back.
James
Yes,
to bring
bring it
back, I
back.
think we need to let him know
Yes.
what it is you want to hear.
Can I suggest a procedural maneuver, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely.
Could you reopen the public hearing and continue it to a date certain the next meeting so that we don't have to re-advertise?
Let's go ahead and reopen.
Should I
public hearing?
withdraw my motion? Do we have to do that with supermajority?
You can modify it to match that since you haven't voted yet, right?
Okay. So I'll modify
that
my
works.
motion to reopen the public hearing with
Continue
the
the
board's,
public hearing
with
to
the board
next
chair's consent, and withdraw my motion.
And I second the modification.
If everyone could revote.
Okay, is the vote standing?
Everyone has to
Haven't voted yet.
Do we vote
vote
again?
again for the same outcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Oaks. If we could now go back to resolution for Christine Adams.
Yes. If we could walk down front. And if Chrissy Adams would come forward. We knew that you were running a little bit late.
Apologize, brand new babies. My grandson.
Yay.
Congratulations.
Yes.
How old?
3 weeks.
3
Oh,
weeks?
yay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's my pleasure this evening to present Chrissy Adams with a resolution upon her retirement with 30 years of service for Pitt County government. And her resolution reads, a resolution honoring Christine W. Adams for her years of service with Pitt County government. Whereas Christine W. Adams was hired June 29, 1992, in the position of social worker, working in child welfare, daycare, employment services, and crisis intervention for the Pitt County Department of Social Services. And whereas Christine W. Adams has faithfully served the citizens of Pitt County for 30 years and 2 months. And whereas, I'm just gonna say Chrissy, displayed the highest degree of professionalism as shown through her honesty, commitment, and loyalty. And whereas Chrissy is respected by her coworkers and the citizens of Pitt County whom she has served through the years. And whereas the citizens of Pitt County have been well served by Christine W. Adams. Now therefore be it resolved that the Pitt County Board of Commissioners does hereby express its gratitude and thanks to Chrissy W. Adams for her career of dedicated and exemplary service to the people of Pitt County, and honors her with this resolution of appreciation given under our hand and seal of Pitt County, adopted this the 12th day of September, 2022, signed by Mike Fitzpatrick, Chairman, Pitt County Board of Commissioners, and attested by Kimberly W. Hines, Clerk to the Board. If you will present that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'd like to say the very first interview I had with Pitt County Department of Social Services, they asked me what my long-term goal was. And I told him it was to retire from Pitt County Department of Social Services. And every time I was interviewed, that was my answer, to retire. So, here I am. Thank you very much. It's been an honor and a pleasure to serve the citizens of Pitt County. Thank you.
Thank you. She said she retired. We need that experience.
30 years, 30 years.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you for waiting.
Come back and wait and work anytime.
We can now move on to the Economic Development Incentive. Ms. Andrews?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Pitt County Economic Development is seeking approval for an incentive for Project Jackpot 2, which was originally called Jackpot. The original incentive was approved on September the 14th, 2020. The incentive included a grant in the amount equivalent to 80% of the net increase in taxes paid by the company for an 8-year period with a cap of $500,000. This was in consideration of an investment of $15 million and 200 new jobs with an average salary of $50,000. Has been some time since the original incentive was approved, and as the project has considered new locations and expanded significantly in scope, investment projections have more than doubled. Therefore, we ask for the same economic development grant with a revised cap of $1 million in consideration of $33 million in new investment with the same job numbers of 200 with an average salary of $50,000. And we respectfully ask for your approval of this incentive for Jackpot 2.
This time we will open the public hearing. Does not appear anyone has signed up for the public hearing. We will close the public hearing and entertain any motions.
Motion approved.
I second.
It has been moved and properly seconded. If everyone could vote, please.
Thank you very much.
Motion passes. Now move on to items for report.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm going to talk a little bit about solid waste, what we do. We operate the transfer station, of course, and our hours of operation are from 8 to 4 Monday through Friday and 8 to 12 on Saturday. We accept commercial, industrial, residential waste, construction and demolition waste, and yard waste. We turn our yard waste into mulch. We give some back to the public, and we also sell quite a bit to Craven Wood Energy, which uses the material for boiler fuel. At our construction and demolition facility, we're recycling the C&D waste that comes in, and I'm happy to say that we're close to about 50% of the material we bring in, we're recycling about 50% of it. What we take out of there is wood, cardboard, metals, and some shingles sometimes, and sheetrock as well. We also operate the 14 convenience sites located throughout the county. Their hours of operation are from April 1st through October is 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and on Sunday we're open from 2 to 7:30 p.m. We back those hours off in November through March. We still open at 7:30, but we close at 6. At the convenience sites, of course, we take household waste, yard waste, bulky waste, which is furniture, those sorts of things, white goods. White goods are metals, refrigerators, hot water heaters, washing machines, those types of material. We also take electronics and TVs at the sites, cardboard, commingled, motor oil, cooking oil, and we also take textiles, which are clothes. and we sell the clothes, we get a little bit of revenue. That's part of our revenue source. We also, I also manage the environmental officer, and later on, I'll talk a little bit about illegal dumping and some recommendations we're bringing. But we have a deputy that helps us with that. There's 22 Pitt County employees out there and roughly 20 temporary employees, and have a budget of $14.1 million. Our budget is, I'm an enterprise fund, meaning we raise our revenues and that's what we spend. On top of these responsibilities, I have the responsibility of being the fleet manager, garage person. And what we do there is our gas program is we use a WEX card, and so everybody's got a PIN number in the county. So we assign PIN numbers. We manage these PIN numbers and add employees and delete employees. We report, we order the WEX gas cards. We also monthly go through the gas report, make sure that each department is charged for their gas. Order new vehicles. We go to DMV, make sure our tags and titles are all done. Make sure I work with our risk manager to make sure we got insurance on our vehicles when we get new vehicles. We're a liaison between the departments and the vendors that we use. We pay all the fleet invoices. All the invoices come through us. We code them, get them to finance to pay, and then we enter that into a program, a fleet program, so we know how much maintenance costs each vehicle has. We coordinate our car washing. We keep the fleet up to date with inspections. We have permanent tags, but we still have to have them inspected just like everybody else. And we also work with finance on selling our vehicles when we replace them through Go Deals. And that's about it. And I'll be glad to answer any questions. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you for your good work and getting the glass containers back in. I wondered how that was going.
It's going pretty good.
Yeah.
We just, we are in the process. We got a grant. We were hauling them straight to Wilson to sell the glass, and we were approached by the state, and they asked me to apply for a grant, which we were able to buy a trailer, a bigger trailer, and we did some work out at the transfer station where we built a pad. So now my roll-off drivers will bring the glass to us, and we'll load it in, get better volume in the truck. But it's going very well.
Okay, good.
I wish I had the tonnage for you.
Oh, that's
but I
okay.
don't.
I'm glad to hear it. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Hogan.
Again, along with Alex, I want to thank you for the good work. But I want to ask you, how are we doing with the debris? You remember we've had complaints about debris falling off trucks, uncovered trucks, and whether or not we were enforcing some kind of penalty for that, and people complaining about having to pick up, one man said even a toilet in front of his house.
I'm getting ready, or later on, I'm going to talk about our illegal dumping. We had a committee, and we've got some recommendations we're going to bring forward to you, and I'll talk about that.
Item for decision number 2.
Okay.
Okay.
I didn't hear car tires. You don't
yes.
accept them, or do you?
We do accept.
Okay, that's a.
Plenty of them.
That's a problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
Item number 2.
We now move on to the Shell Building update. Ms. Sanders?
Back again.
Oh, okay.
For any community to compete for industrial projects, desirable industrial projects, we need shovel-ready sites and buildings. And we have endeavored to identify and develop such properties as opportunities arise. As you may recall, last fall, we conducted an RFQ process, and with your approval, selected MHA Works to design our next shell building to be located on 20 county-owned acres in Farmville Corporate Park, which we purchased at the same time the MHA started their work in early 2022. Tonight, we have Matt Johnson with MHA Works. He's the VP, Senior Project Architect, and Greenville Director of MHA Works to present our progress to date on the shell building.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. As Kelly mentioned, I'm Matt Johnson, architect with MHA Works in our Greenville office. We have been working diligently over the last few months. Seems like it's been longer than it probably has, but we have construction documents that are ready to go and prepared for submitting for permits and approvals and putting out for bid for construction. As part of the design process, we obviously go through a process of cost estimating. Because of the extreme fluctuations in the market, we've actually been outsourcing that to third-party estimates, as well as doing internal reviews of those estimates. Right now, the cost estimate for this project has come in at about twice as what we thought it would be. We were looking at a project at about $4 million. We're sitting just about $8 million right now. That translates to a cost per square foot of about $150 a square foot. It's never the news you want to deliver. I actually had a bid opening for the Department of Transportation for a 3-sided 3,200 square foot salt shed. The low bid was $140 a square foot, and the high bid was $350 a square foot. It has been extremely difficult in the construction industry with costs, escalations, and lead times. We have been working with Kelly and her team, as well as our team of consultants, to look for alternatives that provide more flexibility, but many of the options provide minimal cost reductions for substantial changes in the marketability of the shell building. Reducing loads, things like that, that then make it not undesirable for future potential tenants. As I said, we have plans that are ready to go out to bid, and just here to answer any questions that you might have and on the project. I think Tim wanted to say something too.
Yeah, good evening. I just wanted to chime in a little bit. I've been working on the team that Matt mentioned on some of the design elements of the building. Again, as I've been in front of you before, talking about construction costs just all over the place, and have yet to show any real turn to the good side for us as far as prices coming down. We have looked at other opportunities to try to maybe make this building smaller, to do different things on the site. But as Matt said, again, it doesn't allow for us the flexibility to market it. So the recommendation that I have is to continue to talk to contractors. Matt has a good relationship with a lot of the contractors locally and regionally, and try to determine when may be the best time to actually bid this project. Kind of have it shelf ready. If there's other opportunities, if we can market it that way. Kelly could market it that way to potential industries, and we could be ready to go once somebody became interested or wanted to move forward. But I think at this time, with the pricing that we have, that's probably the best place to be. So, be happy to answer any questions in relation to that.
I didn't hear it, but what was the high estimate on this building?
$8 million, I believe.
8 million?
Yeah, right now our estimate is just shy of 8.2 million total.
Yeah, we'd even talked about possibly bidding it out just to see what the pricing may be, but there's a lot of time and stuff that goes in, into that for contractors to do. And if we trust our architect to come up with a sensible estimate, and if the numbers truly are in that range, I think it's best not to spend the time to do that. Just have communications with them and see when it may be best to actually bid it out in the future.
Thank you.
I have a question. As a point of reference, what was the cost of the last shell building that we sold?
That building, I believe the cost estimates and the final construction cost was 2.3 million.
And that was when?
That was in 2016. There are some differences to what we've designed with this shell building to try and make it more marketable and more flexible. Some of that is to allow for the flexibility. Some of that is also construction material availability. I will say, driving down Evans Street, I was very surprised that the auto dealership has bar joists, because most manufacturers are not taking new orders for over a year. So this building is designed with wide flange beams structure as opposed to bar joist. There's a slight minimal cost increase to that, but it allows future potential tenants to locate equipment inside the building pretty much anywhere. Additionally, this building is currently designed with a fully insulated thermal envelope, whereas the shell building in the Interim part did not have insulation in the entire envelope. Again, those are things that, in sitting with Tim and Kelly, we've looked at cutting those from the project, but you're saving $200,000 on a $8 million project. So it's just escalation in the market.
So what's the likelihood of being able to sell or rent a shell building at this higher cost? Is the demand there?
Kelly would probably know more, but everything that's designed into the building, an ultimate final tenant would have to put into the building if it wasn't designed as part of the shell.
The demand for buildings is certainly there. We have not had this escalation in cost, so whether we can find a ready buyer or not is yet to be seen. I think that with the cost being like that everywhere, and there being a scarcity of buildings, I think that's just if there is a client, and there are clients out there that need a building as soon as possible, then they will bear the cost. $8 million is a lot to take on, and I'm not suggesting that we have a path forward at this point for that, but it's definitely a need. Whether it's sites and buildings, we need both. If we can even have this design ready to go and use our proceeds from the shell to develop a pad-ready site and have a design ready, that gives that client at least 6 to 8 months lead time on getting a building to occupancy.
How many square feet is this building?
It's designed at 55,000 square feet, expandable to 220? 220,
Pretty fair
220,000.
sized building.
Yeah. So on that 20 acres, it can expand to 220.
So do we need more than one shell building? I'm not saying we're gonna fork over $20 million, but do we really need more than one?
Do we need more than, I think we need, we could certainly bear 2 shell buildings, because what we would have.
How many, you're in the position to tell us, how many do you think you really need?
Well,
If you could get them.
if I could get 2 buildings, one at 50 and one at 100, that would be ideal.
Okay,
We don't have any available now.
right, understood. That's why I asked the question, because I really think you need 3, but
Okay.
you said
We'll
2.
but 3 would be wonderful, but, we need any.
Thank you for your presentation. Mr. Taylor?
Good evening, and feel free to ask me what I might need before I leave. Some good news this evening. I know this board has been trying to promote and encourage the expansion of broadband services, especially in particular since the COVID outbreak. It's just become more of a necessity in everyday life. So we had 4 ISP providers, internet service providers, that were submitting applications to the State Department of Information Technology Broadband Office, and one of those providers won a maximum award of $4 million, and that will serve just under 3,000 homes, addresses in Pitt County. What it will also do is actually provide perhaps alternatives or options to other individuals where that line may pass. You heard some indication tonight for some individuals that on the outskirts of the county, broadband's not accessible. This actually truly is a rural expansion. This does not cover the city of Greenville, so it's all around. In the next few weeks, I just received notification today from the awardee, which is Connect Holdings, which will be Brightspeed. The broadband office will be publishing those addresses that were submitted in this application. So that'll give someone a visual perspective on what this will cover. The other good news on this is met with the broadband office, Jeff Brooks, and the next item of this, which will be another $400 million, is the continued access to broadband, the CAB grant. And so we'll have an opportunity to also participate in that. That's going to be some of the examples that you heard. I think an individual from the Farmville area that said they could see the connection, but it was, $12,000 to connect. That's what the continuation to access to broadband will be. That'll be that last mile connectivity. So it'll incentivize and cover that exorbitant cost from what would be a homeowner's responsibility. So I'm actually more probably excited about that because that's really going to close that gap to where people can't get today. So that's where we are now. There'll be some additional funds from the grant. There's still another $80 million yet to be dispersed. So that grant has not been finished yet. And then we'll have the CAB grant, which will start up later this fall. Any questions?
When does stuff start?
So this is the same timeline with our ARPA funds because this is federal money that the state receives. So it would have to be, the project would have to be completely expended by 2026. I will tell you, this company, in talking with them, they're trying to do this, and they actually had awards in 29 other counties. So that's also encouraging because of that mass. They've got a larger incentive to get this done sooner than later.
Commissioner Perkins-Williams?
We are talking about fiber optic.
This is fiber optic. Only fiber optic projects are
I just want to hear it.
No, good question, though.
That was my question.
And the other piece, too, on that, with the continuation, the CAB grant and the House Bill 1133 that Representative Farkas was a co-sponsor on, part of the challenge on these broadband projects is the definition of what broadband service is. It originally was 25.3, which is what the GREAT grant is. So that made it more difficult for providers to come in and say an area was unserved, because if they were getting that, quote, what today would be considered more minimal service, it was considered served. So with the new definition, it's going to be much more broader implementation options.
Right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
And I'd just like to say, too, before he sits down, just a big thank you to Mike. His technical expertise and diligence in working with these providers to bring this money to Pitt County will be absolutely transformational.
It
So
certainly
thank you
makes
so
me
much.
happy.
It is wonderful.
Mr. Hill?
Good afternoon, Chairman Fitzpatrick, Commissioners, Madam Manager. Tonight I bring you the August 2022 tax collection report. The Pitt County fiscal year to date, July 1st, 2022 through August 31st, 2022, combined collection rate for real and personal property is 62.55%. The combined rate 1 year ago for real and personal property was 66.98%. Pitt County Tax Administration continues to pursue all outstanding taxes using the necessary remedies available through the North Carolina General Statutes. It is my recommendation tonight that the board approve the August 22 collection report as presented. If no question.
Move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded if everyone could vote.
Thank you.
Thank you.
He wasn't nervous tonight, y'all.
We could now move on to the manager's report.
Yes, I have a few items. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your next meeting dates are October 3rd and October 17th at 6 p.m. in this room. Also wanted item B to announce that we have a new COVID testing site. You may have seen the other sites throughout the county closed, consistent with the end of the state of emergency. Dr. Silvernail, our Public Health Director, has worked diligently to partner with a company called Optum and Optum Service, and they have opened a public health COVID testing site at the Technology Enterprise Center at 1800 North Green Street in the parking lot. And they are open to the public free of charge Mondays, Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. Testing can be done by appointment or walk-up, and individuals can access a website and phone number on the county's website for additional information about that. Anyone may be tested at that site, including those who are uninsured, underinsured, undocumented, or homeless. We also, to supplement that, have a roving bus that's provided by the Department of Health and Human Services, and it will be in various locations throughout eastern North Carolina. It will be at the Farmers Market, September 15th to the 17th from 8 to 1. It will be at the Pitt County Fair during the time of the Pitt County Fair later this month. And so that, in conjunction with this site, will help to meet the needs of our community. Wanted to make you aware, item C, that we have a new interim Department of Social Services Director. She started Friday, September 1st, actually Thursday at 5 p.m., September 1st, immediately following Dr. Frazier's resignation. The Department of Social Services Board continues to recruit and work towards appointment of a permanent social services director. But wanted you to know that we are pleased to have Suzanne Gray on board as interim Department of Social Services Director for the next 30 to 60 days. My last item, Mr. Chairman, if I could go down front, it would probably go more smoothly because I have a PowerPoint to run you through it.
Mr. Attorney, if I could have the timer, please.
You go, Mr. Chair.
I thought she was coming back.
As I'm walking around, this is really an opioid settlement update. And want to take just a few minutes in this report to share with you some exciting news and some work that's been done in the community. And before I get going, I'd like to recognize some folks who are with us here tonight, those who have had any role in our stakeholders group in preparing the recommendations that I'll be talking about this evening. If you'll please stand. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And if you want to just very briefly introduce yourselves. Starting with Angela.
Angela Lamson.
With ECU.
Lily Malbus with the Pitt County Coalition on Substance Use.
And I'm David Ames, also with the Coalition for many years.
I'm Karisha Holly. I'm the Vice President with Pitt County Coalition on Substance Use.
I'm Glenn Simpson with ECU.
Thank you so much for being here. And if I can run through this presentation with you, which is really an update on our opioid settlement. Just as a brief timeline to begin with, you may recall that we filed a lawsuit against drug manufacturers and distributors in February of 2018 is when this process began. September 13th of 2021, with the assistance of the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, we entered into the North Carolina Memorandum of Understanding, which allowed North Carolina as a state to participate in a national settlement agreement, which was actually executed on November 5th, 2021. That national settlement agreement provided $26 billion nationwide from 4 defendants in that litigation. There are more defendants, and the case remains open as to those defendants, but there won't be settlements nearly to this degree as with these 4 defendants. On May 31st, 2022, we received our first payment under that settlement agreement of $338,731.50. Want to give you, I know this is a little bit small, but want to give you an idea of the money that we will receive over the next 18 years as a result of this settlement. Pitt County, under that $26 billion settlement, will receive $8,816,637 over the course of 18 years. You'll see in the dark red line on top that we have received our first payment of $338,732. Our second payment, which was due in the summer of this year, of $744,936, has not yet been received, but we are expecting that to be received shortly. Thereafter, the annual payments vary according to the formula set forth in the National Settlement Agreement, so that by the end of summer 2038, we will have received that $8.8 million. That money can be used, that $8 million can be used in various ways. And in the settlement agreement, and in actually the North Carolina Memorandum of Understanding, there are two categories of use, Option A use and Option B use. Option A uses are listed on your screen. It allows you to spend money on planning for this, collaborative planning for the expenditure of these funds, evidence-based addiction treatment, reentry programs, addiction for incarcerated persons, syringe services programs, and those other types of services that you see on your screen. You can spend that money directly on those services without any further formal strategic planning. For that reason, Option A uses are recommended, to be contrasted with Option B uses, which are also allowable uses, but before you can spend for an Option B use, it requires a formal strategic plan. And that formal strategic plan is the first bullet under Option A if you wanted to allocate money to pay for that. But Option B uses provide for treatment, prevention, and other strategies are the three broad categories to treat opioid use disorder, prevention, harm reduction, and then other strategies, which may include first responders, leadership planning and coordination, training, and research, all targeted towards addressing the opioid problem in our community. So I am very grateful for the folks who just stood up. When these funds started coming, members of the community last year were reaching out to be sure that we were aware that they might be eligible to provide some of the services under Option A or Option B. And so when I became manager in December, the phone was ringing off the hook from various providers throughout the county wanting to know how this money would be distributed and how it could best be used. So rather than continue that piecemeal approach, I had reached out to PICSU, our prevention nonprofit within the community, and they were very gracious to assist in reaching out to all of the stakeholders who touch the opioid community and bring them together in one room on multiple occasions so that they could share all of their ideas at each from end to end of the opioid spectrum, and then come up with some recommendations that can be shared with the Board of County Commissioners on how we could use these funds to benefit everyone in our community who are impacted by opioids. And so that group met April 5th, May 3rd, and June 7th. And the participants are listed here on this slide and in alphabetical order, and varied from Access East to Walter B. Jones Treatment Facility, Pitt County Health Department, ECHIM for Change, a syringe exchange program, Greenville Police Department, Fire and Rescue, Pitt Area Transit, and the list goes on. Private providers, public providers, and it was a really incredible thing facilitated by Pitt County Coalition Against Substance Use to have folks in the room who were in the same industry, so to speak, who didn't otherwise have an opportunity to talk to each other or even learn about what each of them did. So the knowledge and the resource coordination in that room outside of this settlement was tremendous. And so we thank PICSA for that and for everyone in the community who participated in that process. They gave their group a name, PCOC. They call themselves the Pitt County Opioid Action Committee. And that committee will continue to meet and collaborate for the good of the citizens that we serve long after this money is spent. And I think that's a positive, permanent outcome from getting these folks together in the room. And they have prepared a report, a lengthy report that will be provided to each of you in your weekly packet this week so you can read it carefully, thoroughly, and when you have time to do so. That's not the kind of report we can go through in great detail in a meeting like this, but they provide 4 recommendations broken down into 4 broad categories of recommendations for allocations of first-year money at $1.5 million. Their first recommendation group has to deal with access to care, and they talk about a community engagement center and funding what you may have heard commonly called in the community as a pit stop. a location where folks can receive multiple services within the community, including treatment for substance use, opioid use disorder. Harm reduction. ECHM for Change is a syringe access program, and part of their recommendations include an allocation of funds for harm reduction. They talk further about a recovery resource center within that pit stop, which would be a resource center within the pit stop, about $60,000 plus personnel. And then they talk about needs for prevention within our community. And this committee brought back ideas about an overdose response team, Pitt County Schools alcohol, tobacco, and drug prevention, coordination and continuation of this PCOC, because I think we see the value of all of these players continuing to talk, and other campaigns and training. So you will see a very detailed report that addresses each one of those things in detail. In addition to that, this board has talked about utilizing a portion of this funding for the Pitt Community College Reentry Program. And if you'll recall from the option A categories, that's one of the allowable uses without further strategic planning. So I just wanted to keep that at the forefront of this discussion as well. Procedurally, in order to move to the next step, we've been working closely with Jordan Smith, our county attorney, and he has advised that according to page 7, paragraph 4 of the North Carolina Memorandum of Understanding that we entered into, we must, as a recipient of those funds, before we allocate or expend any of them, formally hold a meeting of municipalities within the county. And that agreement that we signed says that each county receiving opioid settlement funds shall hold at least one annual meeting with all municipalities in the local government invited in order to receive input as to the proposed use. And so I think, are already ahead of the game because we did that on our own already at the beginning of this process. But in order to formally satisfy the requirement in the settlement agreement, we need to advertise and notice a meeting where we invite all of the municipalities before this board allocates any funds to an area recommended or yet to be learned about. So we're asking you today to do two things. After hearing this report, we'd ask you to authorize staff to schedule that required municipalities meeting, and then request that we bring back recommendations for year one spending allocations, taking into consideration that full PCOC report that you'll have an opportunity and time to review carefully, input from the municipalities meeting, and any additional considerations such as the reentry program following that meeting. Any questions?
Commissioner Huggins,
I don't have any questions. I'm ready to make the motion.
ready to receive it. Second. It's been moved and properly second. Everyone.
Is the village of Simpson considered to be a municipality? Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the
The
question.
village of Simpson, considered a municipality.
It is. The Village of Simpson is considered a municipality. And just as a side note, Greenville, based on its size, is the only of our 10 municipalities that receive their own money. So they'll go through this process as well, but will be included in our process. And I've had good conversation with Ann Wall, the city manager, about ways that we can collaborate and combine our funds if that seems to be in the best interest based upon the recommendations. That's all
Thank
I've
you.
got for the motion.
Commissioner Perkins Williams.
Oh,
Motion passes. This time entertain a motion for items for consent.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second. If everyone could vote. Motion passes. Moving on to items for decision. Mr. Corley.
Hello again, Chairman, members of the board. This is an item we discussed at our last meeting in August. It is the contractual part of moving forward with the Recreation and Community Center for the county office complex north of the river. We went back and talked with our architect, did some negotiating with him and his team, and they are willing to come back at 6% of the construction cost, which is a good cost for a good rate for architectural fees. This would include the building design, bidding, and construction administration. The portion that we're asking for tonight is $250,000. This is the same way we did the Alice Keene Park design. These dollars would come from the budget amendment that's attached with this item from fund balance to pay for $250,000 worth of the design services on the additional recreation and community center. We thought it would be cleaner that way. ARPA dollars, as you know, have a lot of stipulations as far as procurement and those things. So what we will do is we'll go through the construction document phase, design phase with these two $250,000 allotments. The $250 you had already approved, and this $250, and then we will use ARPA funds for the actual construction of the project, as well as the architectural fees for the construction administration and bidding of the project. So tonight I'm asking you to authorize the manager to execute the contract amendment with Hyde Associates for the additional $250,000 for design of the additional recreation and community center.
I move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Please vote.
Thank you.
Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Demery.
Go, man.
Good evening again.
Good evening.
Thank you, sir. I told you, we got you. Okay, I'm here to talk a little bit about litter and illegal dumping. As you know, the county created a committee, and this committee met 3 times. We met in June, July, and August. The committee members included representatives from the county, City of Greenville, Town of Aden, NCDOT, and we asked some of the private waste haulers to join us. Out of this committee, we came up with 5 recommendations that were unanimously approved. Real quickly, I'd like to thank the members that joined us for these meetings. These are the ones that attended. The county manager, myself, Deputy Whaley, of course, Tim, James Rhodes, PIO, Dong, Major Capehart with the Pitt County Detention Center. We had representation. Jana helped us with keeping us track and helping us with invites. Matt Gibson from legal provided legal questions. Kevin Mulligan with the City of Greenville, who is their Public Works Director, and Stephen Smith with the Town of Aden, and Jeremy Stroud with NCDOT. So here's our recommendations. First one is to roll out a media litter campaign with PIO January 2023. And the reason we're going to wait till January 2023 is elections is coming up, and we want to do some TV ads, and we were informed it's best that we wait till after the elections, and we'll get more publicity. So that's why January 2023 is our date. What we're going to do is we're going to go out with press release. We're going to update our website. Going to do some digital marketing, and we're preparing a litter program for the elementary age schools. So Paula Clark, my recycling coordinator, is doing that, and she's working on a program I think is going to be really neat for the elementary school kids. We're going to work with our local agencies to increase volunteer litter pickup. Just want to let you know that we did that some this weekend. There was a group of folks out on River Road. Deputy Whaley was out there with them to make sure that we provided safety for them. And what I hear, it turned out to be pretty good. Did you hear any feedback? None? There was quite a few people out there is what I was told. We're going to work with NCDOT's Litter Suite programs. They do one in the spring, and they're doing one right now in the fall. We're gonna help promote NCDOT Adopt a Highway program, and we're gonna work with some of the high school clubs, Boy Scouts, ECU, and PCC to get more people involved during these litter sweeps. Number 3, we're going to continue to patrol the county and investigate illegal dumping and littering issues. Talk about the issue with the tarps. We've been really, we haven't given any tickets out, but we sure have talked to a lot of people. I have talked to a lot of people. I've given positive, I'll stop somebody if I'm coming in work or by the scale house and they've got their load secured good, I'll stop and thank them for it. I have definitely seen an increase in the way people are covering their loads coming into our facility. So I think we're on the right direction. We're going to work with the Sheriff's Department on litter pickup and with staff availability at the Sheriff's Department. And another thing that we tried to do before COVID is we tried to work with the community service program. So we're going to go back and speak with them to see if we can't get that program back out. We're going to continue to monitor loads, ensure they are properly secured. We plan on giving we ordered some tarps and going to give our first tarp giveaway, and not October 2nd, that is Sunday. I noticed that today. We're going to do it October 1st, Saturday. We're probably going to go out to maybe Bells Fork site first, and then, you know, every so often go to different sites and give out tarps. Something else I think would be a neat thing too is get like $5 gift cards to you know, a restaurant or something, McDonald's or something like that. When somebody comes in or we're out at the site and somebody has their load properly secured, give them a $5 gift card. I think, you know, that word will get around. And number 5, we're going to work with the planning department, and we've already done this, an implementation of a mapping system for illegal dumping and litter areas. We're going to map it, put it on a map of areas that when we get complaints, so that we know where our trouble areas are and that we can patrol those more often. So with that, we have a requested action and would like you to authorize staff to move forward with these recommendations. And I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. One day this week, I believe it was, I was on Stantonburg near Allen Road. And this truck, I don't know where the truck was coming from, but at the light, it was there that he decided to cover.
Well, on Landfill Road, we had a sign right there as soon as you turn, and it said something to the effect that we charge you $100 if you cover your load. And I don't know how many times they would stop right in front of that line. So we redid the sign, and I moved it closer to the gate. So when they pull in, it's not right there. It's when they get to the gate.
Okay.
We do have a number of people that do that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. This is just outstanding. I appreciate it. So if I'm in order, Mr. Chairman?
You are.
I make a motion that we authorize you to move forward with this.
It's been moved and properly seconded. If everyone could please vote.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes. Madam Manager?
Yes, we have one reappointment today to the Rivers East Workforce Development Board. It's been recommended to reappoint Mr. Robert Williams to serve on the Rivers East Workforce Development Board as a private sector representative from Pitt County. He currently is on the board and serves as chair.
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to commissioner comments. Commissioner Colson?
None.
Commissioner McLaughlin?
No comment.
Commissioner Perkins Williams?
I had a comment. Water. I had received complaints from the people who came in tonight to talk about the water in their drinking water not being safe. And I contacted Mr. James Rose about it, and we have looked, I want the board to know that we have looked into it, and we did ask them to give us some responses that would help me with this, Mr. Rose. Please, sir. Because I don't want them to contact me and think that we did not do something we did. And we do have some form of information to share about that.
We've reached out to Greenwood Utilities just to see if they're interested or have a capacity of extending sewer service in that area, and they are actually doing one extension already. Won't go exactly to where they're talking about tonight, but there are some possibilities, but we need to look at available grant funds. So we've reached out to the state, so we'll be talking more about that.
Thank you.
And would someone follow up with the speakers?
So what?
Would someone follow up with the ladies that were here and let them know that there's something being
We're
done?
in routine contact.
Got it. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
And we can send I can
That's
send a
fine.
letter
Yeah,
from
that's
the
fine.
office as well.
That's sufficient. Thank you. Commissioner Nunley? No comment. No comment from Commissioner White? Mr. Vice Chair? No.
I do have a comment. Mr. Chairman and other commissioners, given the recent concerns in the community about environmental impacts of economic development, particularly with the world cats and the currency mining, I would like to suggest that the county manager bring back a resolution to our next board meeting for consideration by the board that demonstrates that Pitt County's commitment to preserving the environment and minimizing harmful environmental impacts by industry, and that our resolution be shared with Kelly Andrews in our Economic Development Department to use as a guide and standard in economic development recruitment effort. So, we've heard so much about the environment, and when we recruit these companies to come into Pitt County, and then we have citizens come before us and complain about the environment part of it. So if there's some way that we could, that we as a governing board could take some action and look at this and bring some information back, that when she's recruiting, that this would be a part of it.
Is there an example that
Yeah.
you
Have I missed something? Because I don't know what that's all about. I don't know if anybody's complained with new companies.
Oh, you haven't heard?
Apparently
What
not.
kind of example are you talking about?
Huh?
You have an example?
I have an example of the complaint. Is that what you're talking about?
Of a
The-
complaint or of a resolution? Of a complaint?
Of complaint. That's
Of
what
both,
I'm-
of complaints. All of the group that came before us complaining about Burcat and the company going to over in the Belvoir area, so it's, huh? The boat builders. So all of that's, complaints that we've had recently about environment. So yeah, I'm thinking that we could, this would be an opportunity for us to say to the citizens that we want to protect the environment when we are recruiting. Then we won't have, well, we still may have some, but citizens coming, saying that, it's harmful, to the citizens.
We'll probably always have that.
See what I do?
Well, Madam Chair, I certainly don't have any problem with that, but are we doing, Manager, are we doing anything proactively in that area already? I'm just asking out.
So we are not. So in economic development recruitment efforts, Kelly Andrews is always considering project-specific. The benefits to the community and the impacts and environmental impacts are part of her discussion generally. Hearing some of the concerns that have been shared within the community the last several weeks, and Commissioner Huggins came to me and asked about a potential resolution. And so asked her to share it with the board before I took any further steps. If there's consensus of the board, I can bring back a sample resolution of what something might look like for the board to consider. If not, I won't.
Yeah, the group
Madam
that.
Chair, Mr. Chairman, the trash, addressing this trash issue is an environmental thing. Trash on the highway can cause accidents and everything else, and that sort of thing. I think if we single out something, we're creating something. And we are working for the better. I mean, nobody understood when I said, there's trash here, there's trash here, there's trash here. You got tired of it. And that's an environmental issue. And there are other issues that we address, because you can look at some of these thick steams coming out of these buildings. We don't know about that. And we don't want to cause, I don't want to cause some negative feeling on the industry about certain things that may appear to be a certain way.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting idea. I certainly wouldn't want to see a statement that seemed prohibitive to industry, but I think that one of the things that's been coming out in recent news stories is that there's nothing in writing that says environment should be considered. And so what I would be interested in would be something that, if we went forward with this, something that puts it on paper so that we consider it, but it does not in any way look as though it's handicapping or it's just making it aware that this is a county that has an environmental concern, but not to put too hard a stamp on it. But I think if that's the intent of it, I'm fine with it.
And, I have been asked, who do you contact about environmental issues? Okay? I direct them to the health department. We
have an environmental.
And, so we don't have a department that deals directly with the environmental issues, do we?
Do we have them environmental people?
Most environmental issues would be referred, if they're local, we could have some environmental issues through the Pitt County Public Health Department. If not, they would go to the state
There's not a real
environmental
umbrella, which
division.
doesn't seem we have.
Right.
Well, what's Jordan now? Jordan and the other girl over in planning, aren't they environmental kind of people? I mean, it's hard how you look at it. I don't want to sound that I'm against environment, and I don't want the people to think that I'm not cognizant about environment. But we got all the things that the drainage people do, that's environmental. We do that, that's environmental. And Jordan, isn't he an environmental person? Huh?
Oh, Jonas.
Jonas, I know you, because I be calling, I keep them busy over there. And so I don't want to cause attention to something that's gonna hinder people from coming here and settling.
Commissioner Lundman.
May I suggest that the current discussion is most appropriate for our board to consider as an item for decision or discussion at the next meeting? It feels like we're getting kind of far afield here out of the comments. Then we can have a more orderly discussion about what different commissioners think about it and just handle it at that time, as opposed to ad hoc here in the comment section. I just think that would be a more appropriate agenda place, just for the general discussion.
Okay. In one group, the second group, north of the river, have been having discussions about the environment. So.
The whole Compute North stuff was environmental.
Commissioner Ward, do you have any comments?
No comments.
Thank you. This time entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second.
It's been suggested this body go into closed session under 2 grounds. First, to prevent disclosure of information that is confidential or protected under North Carolina General Statute 143, 318.10. And second, to consult with an attorney employed or retained by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege. If you could please vote.
You know, when I slapped it, I had no more trouble at it.
You'll be notified when we're in closed session.
Commissioner Coles. Good evening. We're now back into open session. At this time, entertain any such motions that the board may have.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that we approve on the closed session minutes of August 8th, 2022.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Motion passes. At this time, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded.
Sandwich.
Go over.
I spoke too quick.
Motion passes. Meeting is adjourned.